Hi, my name's Ginny Lindsay. I'm the principal therapist and founder of From Two to Three Relationship Counselling in Crow's Nest. And I see couples and individuals from pregnancy right through to young families and teenagers. And my work is all about saving relationships and getting effective communication happening between the two where there is respect. And one of the things that I have found really important and really interesting is that there are 4 different types of marriages. And I think when couples start to understand what type of marriage they're in and therefore what it looks like, and they can then identify with it, then they can go, right, okay, so that's what we're actually doing. That's what's happening in our relationship. And then they may aim for what we call the H relationship, which is the one that we're really all wanting for, to have the richness, the depth, and the real intimacy between the two people involved. So I think the first thing is it's really important for people to understand how a relationship is actually formed and what we're talking about. So the first thing that we're looking at is all marriages or all relationships, if you decide you don't want to get married, you're 2 people that are still together. So we have one person, which I'll call system 1, and they have their family of origin, they have their life experiences, they have their own survival strategies, and those are coping strategies that are used to alleviate anxiety. The other party also then has the same, so they're system 2. So they'll have their unique nature, family of origin, life experiences, survival strategies, also how to cope with stress and anxiety. And then when we put 2 people together, we have a system in the middle, which I call the system 3. And that's created when these other 2 systems come together. And what we are wanting to do in couple therapy or relationship work is to be able to understand how our past family life experiences and ways we deal with stress or anxiety impact the other, hence impact the relationship. So that's really important, first of all, to sort of just understand what it is. So people tend to marry or are attached to somebody with the same amount of self-development and self-esteem potentially that they have themselves. So when you've done quite a lot of work on yourself, you'll actually find yourself either ahead or equal, or you know where you are sort of in relation. You can really feel where you are, and that can sometimes cause a little discord between the couple. So ultimately what we're trying to do is both do the work so you can grow together. So I thought what I'd do today is actually just go briefly through the 4 types of marriages. So all relationships. The first one I really want to, I've done these little cards, so I'm just going to hold it up like that first of all. And this is called the A-frame marriage or relationship. So this one is where it's based, and all of these ones, firstly, I just want to say, they're all based on the level of self-development, okay? So we're describing in all 4 types that I'm about to talk about, we're describing the predominant behavior patterns and characteristics of a particular type of relationship, okay? I think that's important to put out first. There is no pure type of relationship. These are just general characteristics of the types of relationships. And it seems that people can tend to recognize the predominant characteristics of their own interactions. And that's probably what I'm wanting to do. This is about looking at yourself and looking at what potentially your relationship looks like. So let's get on with then looking at the different ones there. So the first one is this one, which is I've got to get that right. Yep, there we go. The A-frame marriage relationship. So this one is very much characteristically, as I was mentioning before, where it's characterized by dependency. There's a real dependency on each other. And partners don't necessarily self-disclose, and they don't necessarily delve too deeply. So you may be angry, but there's no search as to what is behind that actual anger, no curiosity to be able to sort of go, what's happening for you, what's brought this on, how are you feeling, what's the, and really become curious about understanding the anger for you, your emotional experience, because that's where the meaning is. And then they, by exploring it with you, get to know you deeper. Another characteristic is in this type of relationship is there can be quite a lot of conflict, as there's really no desire to have the other person fulfill there is conflict because there is a desire for the other to fulfill the unmet needs and those needs that obviously are really, really important to you. So there's also quite a lot of manipulation and coercion in this type of relationship, and anxiety levels are usually quite high as well, when one partner then can distance him or herself from the other. And when that tends to happen, you'll find that romantic love wanes, and there's often pressure on the other person to fill that emptiness that's within the self. So there's quite a lot of pressure for the other person to actually do that. So when the conflict is there, then often the open conflict levels are quite high. And I would say that generally with this type of relationship, there's a lot of reactivity that tends to happen in this type of relationship. So we'll move on now to the next one. So this type of relationship is what we call the lean-to. Okay, so that way, there we go. So this is the lean-to relationship, and this is where one partner seems to be more in control or dominant over the other partner, and the other partner tends to be much more compliant or submits or is submissive to the other to avoid the conflict. Okay, so the overly dominant partner, because of that behavior of the submission and compliance, there's no real pressure on that person to want to really or need to encourage development of the self. So the overly submissive partner gives up also the development of self. So both are really giving up development of self. And what tends to happen is also in this sort of situation, in the lean-to relationship, is that the submissive partner also often builds resentment. And that resentment is often acted out, finding someone else to go to talk to that is accepting and understanding of their circumstances. So they're not going necessarily to their partner for whatever reason that is, which we would want to get to know. But what we do know is there's little opportunity to grow out of conflict. So this is probably the type of marriage that a conflict avoider tends to go into, and the power struggles are suppressed by the submission of one partner to the other. So that's probably, if you can relate to that one, excuse me. So that's the lean to marriage or relationship type. The third type, which I've got here, is what we call the parallel. Okay, so it's really just your two lines, the parallel type. And this is where what tends to happen is there's little or no communication of the real self. There's no curiosity. The two people are just really living or coexisting together, doing their own thing. Each person is generally fairly well self-contained, and so dependency levels in this one are actually very low, which is quite different from, as you can see, the other two types. Some find this quite satisfying because there's often little conflict that happens, or there's little emotional pressure that actually happens also. But there may be times of feeling close and friendly, but there might be other times where there's a real need for space and time apart in this type of relationship. So they're often quite good companions. Depth of self-awareness and self-disclosure of the real self, as you can imagine that if they're living quite separately, self-contained, they're quite minimal, because they don't necessarily they don't go to that depth of really wanting to understand each other. The level of physical intimacy often in this type of relationship also is quite low, and the frequency of sex is also usually quite low, or for some people it's non-existent. There's just such a distance, therefore, between the two. So each, therefore, either pursues a career, a hobby, their own interest, and often this is without the other's involvement, hence why we have the two lines. And what we're going to be aiming for in the next one is the line across here, which is the H relationship. So this is very much about separateness, doing things both emotionally, physically, or most things at a separate. So you may be able to identify with this type of relationship and questioning if that's really working for you, or whether you're wanting to have more connection with your partner, but you're not quite sure how to do that. So that's where first of all, we just want to be able to identify with what we think the type of relationship is that we're looking at. So the fourth type of relationship, which is the one that all couples really want to be striving for, is what we call the H relationship. So that's this one, which is the one we are all wanting to get. So this particular one here is when both people are able to be independent. So this is, say, what we were talking about before with the system 1, system 2, system 3. So say this is one person here, they're fulfilled. And this is the other person, and they are fulfilled. So this is their work, their interests, their hobbies, anything that really feeds them and makes them feel great about themselves. And the line across the middle is everything that you share together, how you communicate effectively, all the interests that you share together. So this looks quite different from when I explain it that, okay? So these two people in this one are doing their own thing, but the difference here is the connection that actually goes on. And in this part here is where you can both be independent here, and they're usually people that are quite confident, have got good self-esteem, but both partners in this type of relationship are in pursuit of self-understanding, self-development, and discovery of the real self. Now that takes work, and it takes an ongoing experience as we go through different transitions of life. And that's going to raise different issues, different challenges, but we walk with it with our partner. So both are involved in what we call the 3 R's in a relationship, and that's responsibility for self, and that's for taking ownership of your part that you're playing in the relationship. It's then being the real self. So that's the 2nd R. The first one is responsibility. The second one is about being the real self, and that's being masks coming down and being able to speak your truth. Being able to speak that in a way that is respectful with no criticism, judgment, defensiveness, but being able to say, I feel really angry or disappointed or sad, and your partner being able to hold their own reactivity at the time. But if they don't, to be able to turn around and have repair and be able to work between them what actually happened in that conflict and have the repair. And the 3rd R is romance. So the 3 R's are very big in this particular one. Both want to know each other at a deeper level, and that's both their thoughts and their feelings, so they can really understand from an emotional level what the meaning is for them and why they are therefore acting out the way they do. How do they work together and compromise or agree to disagree? But this is all about this line here on how to do that. And so what we're saying in this one though is conflict does exist in this, but the skills are sought, which is I think what I was just describing a minute ago. The skills are really sought to deal with honesty and assertively being able to do it with the differences between the two. Sexual intimacy here is high and is often very rich and very varied, with time actually being devoted to that. So I know couples that actually make time and set it up. So some people, for them, it's Sunday mornings where it's just a no-go zone. That's their time together. Others will prepare a day or a night where they set the whole thing up. So it's not just, oh, let's just go and have sex. It's actually an important part of their relationship. So what you're probably hearing therefore is emotional depth is deep. Time is made to be together, but time is made also to support the other person doing what it is that's important to them. So this person here would be encouraging this person to fulfill what they need to do and making time, and this person vice versa would be doing it for this one, but then they would be making time together as well. So both are interested in the development of their full potential in all parts of the relationship. So as you can see, this is something that people are really aiming for. The partnership in this relationship is very much marked by equality and respect, very high respect for each other. And it's absolutely essential that you develop the real self to be able to do this, to achieve this goal. Okay, so a real partnership where each person is free, which is what I was saying here, to develop both as a person and as an equal half of this H relationship. So that's the ideal one, but as you can see, it takes work, but a relationship does take work. But what you get when you get here is a real deep equality, rich sexual relationship. And that is quite different to, let me just recap for you, this one where two people are, as you can see, traveling along together, but separate. They're missing this whole thing here between the two. Then we had the second one, which was this one, which was where you've got the strong person who's quite dominating or controlling, and this one here, for whatever reasons, submit. And so there's not a lot of growth happening here between the two. And then you've got the first one, which is the lean-to, which is they're supporting each other, and the anxiety there when they're really very much about supporting each other. I'm trying to get that up in the right spot. So, so I wanted to share with you, so maybe you can relate to where you are in your relationship, and if you might be happy in that. But if when I've gone through the different types, you're relating to that and you go, I would love to get to that H relationship. How do we do it? And the thing is, you can start by even starting to move those, because what I would want to do is try to get you both starting to go upright. So there's more fulfillment within the self. There's more, so instead of going like that, I would help you and work with you to what was needed and getting in the way for you to be able to get upright within yourself. So you feel secure, you feel confident, your self-esteem is high, you feel fed in what you're wanting to do in life, and your partner the same. And then ideally, we'd be, through our process together, I would very much be working on that H, which is your communication, effective communication skills that are authentic, respectful, with no criticism or judgment or stonewalling. And yes, there will always be conflict, but it's learning the skills how to do conflict resolution so you can keep that going. But every time it's through conflict that you actually get depth, because that's where you're going to get to know each other at a deeper level. So partners that have little conflict, there is the question of, well, how well do you really know each other at a deeper level? If you're at an H and you've got the skills, maybe so. But if you're finding there is quite a lot of conflict and you'd like more skills on how to communicate effectively and how to develop yourself, that you feel really strong within yourself, and therefore you are changing the dance with your partner and then giving yourself a chance to grow, but providing space for your partner to be able to expand and grow. I would love to help you. So I'm based in Crow's Nest, and my number's 0412 88 2345. My website is from 2 to 3, and that's numeral 2, then the word TO, then numeral 3. And so give me a call or email me on Ginny@from2to3, and I would absolutely love to be able to help you, support you, to work you towards that amazing H relationship. Have a fantastic afternoon. We've had a bit of rain and sun is out at the moment, so enjoy your day.